This video is about using the BC-5 electric as a cocoa roaster. We've had a lot of interest in our roasters for high-end cocoa roasting, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the BC-5. This one's been modified to use for cocoa. This is an electric model. We also do offer natural gas and propane or LPG models that can be modified and used for cocoa roasting as well. This particular customer wanted this roaster for cocoa roasting, and they wanted an all-electric model. So we'll talk to you about how this can really work well for cocoa roasting. This is the all-new 2018 model. If you've watched any of our videos about the BC-5, you already know the new features we've added on the 2018 models. But if you're new to the BC series, just to cover the control panel, you've got your power button, which turns on all the power to the machine. This being electric, it's a 220, and you'll need a 30 amp breaker for it, because it's if you get the coffee roaster, it's 5,245 watts. This has been modified using one less burner or heat element, which actually is still in the machine and can be hooked up if you ever wanted to modify it to be more powerful or to use for coffee roasting. It's just a matter of a couple of wires being put on, which can actually be done right from the back panel here. But anyway, to turn this on, you hit the power button. To turn the heat on, you hit the heat baking button, which we'll talk about in a minute. To get the timer started, here's how you reset it, and that's how you start the timer. You can see it lights up. Then if you want the cooling and mixing tray, these are the two buttons for that. One reason why the BC stand out above the Phoenix models currently is because you, especially for cocoa, is you don't want a lot of abrasion as cocoa is more fragile than coffee beans. So you can do the cooling fan without having to do the mixing. If you want to, you can do the mixing without having to do the cooling. Or you can do them both together when you first drop the beans into the cooling tray. So because this roaster has a manual dial damper, which I'll show you in a minute. So here's the manual dial damper. It on the far right side is 0, and you turn it counterclockwise to open it up. It'll open up all the way to 10. And this is a higher end manual dial damper than many. It's got a pipe inside of a pipe that opens the opening up. Generally speaking, even on an electric roaster, you want to have some airflow going through there, somewhere between 1 and 2 when you first preheat your roaster. One interesting thing about the BC line, the BC-5 and 3, as well as the 2, is that we decided to leave the hot air flow adjustment on it. So what that means is if you did not want to use the manual dial damper, you could turn the manual dial damper to 10, opening it all the way, and you could use the adjustment for the electronic fan, and it kicks in usually about 20-30, and you can tell variation in the speed of the fan between about 30 and 70. But that's one of the main reasons why we went to the manual dial dampers. You don't have a lot of range in the electronics. So generally speaking, we tell you to turn it up to 100% and do all your airflow adjustment with the manual dial damper. Now we're going to show you why this model is really excellent for cocoa roasting. And I apologize if I had the settings on the camera wrong. It looked like I overexposed a little bit. But one of the important things I've been told about cocoa roasting, and don't get me wrong, I'm a beginner at that, but I've been talking a lot to experts that do that and reading articles. One of the important facets is being able to control airflow, to be able to control the temperature, and so forth. And so the beauty of this machine is to turn on your heat elements, because it is electric. You hit the baking button, the light comes on, and now you have a range of 0 all the way up to 100. So if you wanted to bring your temperature up faster, you would turn this all the way up to 10. Being that it's electric, keep in mind that any adjustments you make take about a minute or so for the heat elements to either heat up or cool down, and so it's not going to be a fast adjustment like you would see on gas. As you can see now, I've been talking for, let me go ahead and reset this. I've been talking for several seconds since we turned it on, and it's just now kicking in. And as in general, the same with coffee roasting, you're going to be focusing on the bean temperature, but you also want to keep tabs on the hot air temperature. And by the way, this has all the same features as our coffee roasters. You can do computer profiling. You have drum speed control, which I have it set now at 6. And keep in mind that's not RPM, that's 6 speed of the actual drum of the actual motor of the drum. So in coffee roasting, you judge the correct drum speed partly based on the tumble of the beans, and so we like to have it tumble in at a 45-degree angle. But I've been told in in cocoa roasting, you oftentimes want that drum to be slower. Now keep in mind, you never want the drum to be turned off, because you're going to be heating one side of the drum and not the other, and you could potentially warp it. So you always want it moving, and you probably don't want it to go super slow, so you'll have to judge that based on your expertise with cocoa roasting. So here's the cool thing, one of the other cool things, not only do you have control of the heat, which right now I'm really heating it up fast because I got it on 10, and as you can see it's kicking in, you also have control of the airflow. And when the temperatures are lower, you may note that when you turn up the airflow, it may slow down the rate of rise on the bean temperature. On the other hand, when the temperatures get up toward maximum, turning up the airflow may increase the rate of rise. Another cool feature is if you decide to turn off your heat altogether, you can just hit the baking button, and then if you wanted it, say you had it up to 325 and now you want it to drop down to something like 265, quickly you can increase the airflow, and as you'll notice, it's going to start going backwards here real soon, and it's actually going to start cooling because you're now pulling. I've got the airflow set at 10. You're now actually pulling cooler air through the drum. Now keep in mind, it takes about a minute to start to see this reaction, but you will start to see it slowing down, coming to a stop, which is something you never want to do in coffee, but in cocoa it's a different matter. Okay, I'm going to kick it back down to about 3 on the airflow manual dial damper. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the power back on because I'm going to show you some other things. If you also want to slow down the rate of rise, you've got complete control over your heat elements here. Let's say you got it up to where you pretty much you want it to stay at that point. You can bump this down to a lower temperature to get it to stay and balance at that temperature. Another feature is you may notice these controls are preset. I don't too worry about the hot air temperature control, because what turns on and off the heat elements is the control or temperature control, the ohm run temperature control with the bean temperature. So as you can see right now, I've got it set to 265. But let's say you really wanted to bring it up initially to 325. You just do the arrows over here, and then you do the up and down button. So now I'm at 365. Obviously I don't want that high of heat. So say I wanted 325. Now I've turned it to 325 after a few seconds. It settles, and now my temperature is going to continue to rise at whatever rate I have it set based on the heating adjustment and the hot air regulation done through the manual dial damper. It's going to rise up to that temperature. If I need it to rise faster, I would turn up the heating adjustment. Also, once you get it up to 325, if you wanted to slowly bring it down to 225, what you could then do is switch that back up. I'm sorry, if you wanted to bring it to 265 or whatever your temperature number is, you can adjust this on the manual control, and then you have complete control with the manual dial damper, either increasing or decreasing that air flowing through the drum, as well as the heating adjustment as well. Now, another cool thing is in coffee roasting, as you begin to bring your roast up to first crack, by increasing the drum speed, you actually increase the momentum and can increase the heat of the roast. So that's another tool that you can either use to increase or decrease drum speed for your cocoa roasting. So we hope that this little brief analysis helps you to appreciate or see that you have a lot of control over this roast. And as you can see, because I had turned it down so far, the temperature heating adjustment to 30, we're pretty much keeping it steady at 206 degrees, which is great if you wanted it that, but if you wanted it to rise more, you would up the heating adjustment on that. You would see after 30 or 60 seconds, when those elements get fully hot, they will turn bright red if you turn them up to 10 after a moment or so. Then you can control your heat by the heat adjustment, by the manual dial damper, and even by the airflow. I'm sorry, manual dial damper is the airflow, even by the drum speed. So I hope this helps, gives you an idea to show you the great flexibility that there is in using the BC-5 electric model as a cocoa roaster. Now, for the gas models, I'm not 100% sure that we would want to use the BC-5. We may want to switch over to a modified Phoenix Oro 5 or Oro 8. The nice thing about those is they have a double wall stainless steel drum, which gives you a great amount of cushion, and you can also, because their burner system is much more mellow, we call it the waffle system, you can really turn that temperature down slow. Whereas currently in the BC-5 gas models, they have 8 burners and they're designed for high productivity with coffee roasting. So they may not be the best choice on a cocoa roaster. But then again, we can modify them to put a smaller burner in if you would want to stick with the BC line. So we hope this helps you out, and I'm going to take just a minute and show you some of the features that have been added on the 2018 model in case you haven't seen it on our other lines. One of the features is the maintenance door here in the back. You just use these thumb screws, loosen them, don't lose the thumb screws, and then your maintenance door will open. Don't open it while you're roasting or while you're got the machine powered on. That would be dangerous. But when the machine's powered off and unplugged, if you need to get in there to grease the bearings, very easy to get to. If you even need to get into the circuit breaker, it's just right down over here, and so you can get in and flip that back on if something were to knock it off. So that's one of the cool features. And of course, this is your drum speed control back here. This is your USB plug for doing artisan software to profile your roasts. I've already talked to you about the manual dial damper, but we've also added an airflow gateway. So you can open that up if you ever need to test the airflow, and we have information on how to go about doing that to make sure that when you set up your roaster and your exhaust pipes so that you have the proper airflow, because if you run extensive piping, you may need to add a booster fan at the end of that piping. Let's say you had a 20-foot pipe to get out the roof. Then you may need to add a booster fan, and there's tests you can do with this airflow gateway to find out how to do that. A couple other just little tiny improvements we've done is we've added all new metal and beautiful knobs to the hopper on the 5, and if you look down here, we've added a much more heavy-duty, nicely made latch for the release from the cooling tray. You don't see it on the electric because it's not there, but if you had the gas model, you would see a knob that's all metal that's much more fine-tuning on the gas adjustment. So those are just some of the new features we've added. Very heavy-duty hardware on the BC line. To give you an example, let me show you the front. I can't get in there too close because I've got a lot of crates in the workroom today, but you can see these are custom-made door hinges. They're not a cheap door hinge like you'll find on some roasters, but a very heavy-duty custom door hinge. So everything about the BC is heavy-duty. So we hope this helps you, and if you're into cocoa roasting and you want to move up, say from a small B-more or something, and you really want to get serious about it, the BC-5, we have been told the BC-5, which does 5 pounds of coffee, will actually do about 8 pounds of cocoa. Now that's what we've been told. I've not looked into that myself since this is all new to me. But we hope this helps you, and if you have any questions, feel free to email info@buckeyecoffee.com or give us a call and we'll try to answer some of your questions. So thank you for your time.